when we considered what we wanted to do is we wanted to essentially empower therapists to heal anxiety and depression by leveraging psychedelics and doing it at scale. And so that needs to be done through a model that everybody understands. And I always try to remind myself and others around us that, we are sitting here at Psychedelic Science 2025. Getting people bought into psychedelics isn't a thing. Everybody's bought in. But until your grandma tells you, oh, you feel depressed, you should go do some psychedelics, like she would give you an ibuprofen, it hasn't been mass adopted. And so we're still very in these early days of, like the podcast that you're doing, educating people about what these compounds are, that they're not the stigma that we need to work through, and that there are very, very healing properties to these treatments.
Hi everyone, welcome to Psychedelic Conversations. I have with me Jonathan Sabbagh from Journey Clinical. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here with you and have this conversation.
Yeah, great to meet you in person.
Likewise.
I know we are connected on LinkedIn, and for the context, I would love you to tell us about your work. And you are the founder of the Journey Clinical. So if you could tell us a little bit about that. And then we want to move into your personal story of what brings you to this work, if
Sure.
that's okay.
Yeah, I would love that. Maybe if you're okay with that, I'd love to start with my personal story first.
Let's go.
And then it'll inform a little bit about
expand to
why we built this business, if that's okay
for sure.
with you.
Makes
Wonderful.
sense, yeah.
Great. So I'm Jonathan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Journey Clinical. And I had the pleasure of founding this company about 4.5 years ago with my wife. So that's been a journey on its own. My background is in finance. I grew up in Switzerland, and for the first 20 years of my career, I built 2 companies from the ground up in that field. I had a burnout building that first company about 15 years ago, and it was pretty bad. I used traditional medication. It helped, but it didn't quite get me there. And eventually what happened was that a friend of mine introduced me to psychedelics maybe 10 years ago. And I started with ayahuasca. It really helped. It was a huge deal. It really saved my life. But after a while, what started to happen was that I was having repeated difficult experiences. And I couldn't quite integrate them, to the point where I was actually kicked out of my circle. So in that moment, I was very blessed to find a really great therapist in New York, and we started doing ketamine-assisted therapy together. He diagnosed me with PTSD, which, at the age of 38 is a big deal to actually understand what was going on with me and that I didn't understand all these years, suffering from depression, from anxiety, even substance abuse issues. And eventually, after I got better much faster, and so I stopped feeling a sense of connection with my work in finance. And at the age of 38, I decided to quit finance and go back to school. I was actually an undergrad because I didn't finish high school. And so I did my GED at 38 at Far Rockaway. It was super cool. There were 50-year-olds, passing their GED. It was so inspiring. It's never too late to do something in your life.
Yeah.
And I went back to school to study clinical psychology. And while I was in school, I actually got to meet Ingmar Gorman, who founded Fluence and who became a friend and an advisor to our company. And I felt the need to integrate all of my background as an entrepreneur building and scaling businesses with this deep mission that I feel to deliver these treatments at scale safely and responsibly. And my experience with my therapist deeply influenced how I thought the container to deliver psychedelic therapy would be most beneficial to patients and also would scale well and would have sort of a virtuous circle where therapists and small businesses grow. And so I dropped out of school. I still don't have a college degree. And I got lucky that my wife accepted to found the company with me. And so it was mid-COVID. We were in our apartment. We didn't have much money left, and we were like, okay, let's just do this. And so in 2021, we launched Journey Clinical. We started with the first 10 users, and here we are today, the largest provider of psychedelic therapy in the world, actually.
Wow.
Yeah,
congratulations.
So thank you. Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. It's been a journey.
Yeah. As it is.
Yeah, indeed.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just wanted to say, Adam, I remember also like starting the podcast around the same time, and one of my mentors of that time said, you know, when things really when the world is shattered with such impactful thing that affects everyone, you know, like pandemic at the time, he said, those are the times that empires are built, he said.
It's true.
You know, like a lot of the people, it's so interesting because around that same time, we could either go into fear, completely, you know, constrict, and then, you know, stop the growth and go and hide and be in the fear. Or it's also the time, such a paradox, right? That really brings out the legacy work in everyone. I think a lot of people I speak to, it's almost like they've been hiding, doing all these detouring in their lives, you know. And then pandemic almost like squeezed out their legacy work out of them.
I love that.
Would you agree?
100%. I think a really clear question for us was, what do we do? Do we stay in New York? We live in New York City. So, you know, and our families live in Switzerland. We almost went back to Switzerland. And then all of a sudden something said, no, let's just stay here. And, you know, you either, as you say, hide or you get moving and you build something. And that's what we did. And it was great.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, same.
And like I said, it's what I'm hearing here is, I'm sure our listeners will resonate so much. So we very much as a community into safety, harm reduction, setting, and really like learning about what are the options here. Because when it comes to mental health, as you said, and I know that we have a shared, you know, common understanding of it, it's really tricky than just sending someone off to Costa Rica, South America, or an indigenous places where when the person comes back completely lost and nowhere to go to. So I feel like what you're doing fits right in with our Western complexity. Would you agree?
That's such a great point, and I'm so aligned with that. You know, I benefited very much so from traditional ceremonies and ayahuasca, and I'm tremendously grateful for them.
Totally.
And the language we speak is a Western medical model, and that is our shaman to a certain extent, in the West at least, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we considered what we wanted to do is we wanted to essentially empower therapists to, you know, heal anxiety and depression by leveraging psychedelics and doing it at scale. And so that needs to be done through a model that everybody understands. And I always try to remind myself and others around us that, you know, we are sitting here at Psychedelic Science 2025. Getting people bought into psychedelics isn't a thing. Everybody's bought in. But until your grandma tells you, oh, you feel depressed, you should go do some psychedelics, like she would give you an ibuprofen, it hasn't been mass adopted. And so we're still very in these early days of, like the podcast that you're doing, educating people about what these compounds are, that they're not the stigma that we need to work through, and that there are very, very healing properties to these treatments.
That's such a good way of putting it. I used to say, if we trip together, the families trip together, they stay together. So I met another very amazing person who's doing a legacy work. He said, until we can talk about psychedelics around our children, you know, we still need to do a lot of work. There's still so much work to be done. And I really get that. I think so much to be said here, but just to bring back the conversation to your journey, I'm glad you saw the potential the time that you did, because those are the aha moments, the breakthrough moments that creates the ripple effect. And also you said a model that everybody can resonate, relate, and understand.
Correct. Yeah. I think that our role is to be patients and be educators, and we aim to, and I'll walk you through what we do after this, but we aim to deliver the gold standard of care at scale, and we've built infrastructure for that. And so, if you look at great stories of great founders, it's not always market timing. It's really being super passionate about something that you really, really care about, and being willing to go through all the pain, no matter what anybody says, until you get your vision, because, you have to believe in what you're doing, and it's hard. And for me, these treatments saved my life, and I care a lot about this. So I think that's also really, really an important thing to consider, but also in being patient, right? People need to be educated, working with all the stakeholders, letting people know that it's safe over and over again, and not being humble, I think, in the work that we do, and that people take time to change their perspective.
Because this is not a symptom management, this is existential work we are laying down the ground for.
Correct. Well, there's been no innovation in psychiatry for the past 50 years, right? So you have psychedelics, basically. And if you consider just the landscape, and we forget, but there's been some pretty tremendous advancements. We've had Spravato, which is essentially an FDA-approved psychedelic that grew almost 100% year over year. It's on its way to being a $5 billion drug now.
Tell us a little bit about that, now or later, however you feel comfortable.
About Spravato? Yeah. There's various types of psychedelics. Ketamine right now is prescribed off-label to treat primarily anxiety and depression. It's in the top 10 drugs by the WHO to be held, and it has been used since the 90s. There was a guy called Evgeny Krupitsky who used to use it for alcohol treatment, and that's kind of the baseline of a lot of the IV protocols that you see. And a lot of the research, which is mostly on intravenous ketamine, shows tremendous effect size on people who are resistant to depression. Within 24 hours, they start to feel some effects. And I'll walk you through some of our work, but we actually recently saw some of our data, and 87% of our patients have seen improvement in outcomes, and 40% have shown full remission, which is tremendous, right?
Wow.
And we've delivered more than 300,000 hours of ketamine therapy. But ketamine is a little bit different than other more traditional psychedelics. It works on a receptor called the NMDA receptor, which regulates glutamate in your brain. There's a theory that if it's poorly regulated, it's a physiological cause of depression, and so it acts as a lock. It's an antagonist, and then the glutamate is properly regulated, and so people within 24 hours get better. But then you need follow-on doses.
Exactly.
and follow up.
Do you know my simple understanding of ketamine? It's so simple, like I think a 5-year-old might get it. So treating, it's a dissociative.
That a lot of people, anesthetic.
Because most mental health issues stem from that as well, dissociation. It's like, treating dissociation with dissociative. It just makes sense, because our biology is very clever like that.
Right. Well, there's also a very interesting factor which we've observed, and I think it'll benefit from telling you what we do now, but when people do a ketamine-assisted therapy session, because it's the dissociative anesthetic, so your sense of disembodiment can happen rather quickly. And when the ketamine starts to wear off, you actually have a bottom-up process that starts, which is essentially feeling your body again. And a lot of the insights that our therapists have reported have come on the tail end of the session, when they start to become re-embodied in their body. And we all know that for people who are traumatized, not having a body is a thing, actually.
Totally.
And so that's quite amazing.
Profound.
It's very profound.
Yeah.
And so maybe just to give you a little bit of perspective on what we do at Journey. So, it's really important to understand that, we're not a ketamine company. We are a infrastructure solution that has built to deliver the gold standard of care at scale. And what we believe that gold standard of care is the framework of working with a therapist, doing preparation, being present with the dosing, either in person or virtually, but having support during the dosing session and doing the integration work. And so we very much see psychedelics as an adjunct to the therapeutic process and the therapeutic alliance versus a solution in itself. It's a tool in our perspective.
That's the defining factor of why it works, I believe. Because I understand the whole mental health, how it becomes, the root causes. So I really get it. This is why it works.
Yeah, I think that's at least my experience, and it's been the experience of a lot of people, and it is how a lot of the clinical trials at Lykos, for example, have been put together, or even we're partnered with Compass Pathways, and they do have there's no therapy in their drug, but there is psychological support. So it is either anecdotal or data-driven knowledge that having more therapy around that helps. And so when we considered what was the best path to doing so, what we realized was that empowering therapy practices to be able to deliver these treatments in their practice with their existing patients was the best way to do it. And the reason for that is that they're embedded in local communities, and they have a therapeutic alliance with their patients, and that in turn delivers really the best container to deliver this care. And when we looked at the landscape of what is going on, a lot of therapists are referring out to outside clinics, or patients are doing it on their own and kind of talking about it with their therapist, or patients are seeking to do that with somebody else. And if you're going to have maybe the most profound experience of your life, having that with someone you've never met, or an app is really, or who's not informed about this, is really quite difficult. And so what we wanted to do was really equip them with the tools. And so, practically what that means is that we have developed the whole back-end infrastructure for therapists to be able to deliver psychedelic-assisted therapy, starting with ketamine, off-label ketamine therapy, in their practice. So what that means is that the first thing is that we are the doctor. So we have a whole 50-person medical team led by Dr. Kyle Lapidus, who's an MD PhD from Albert Einstein, who oversaw MAPS sites. We have a lot of former MAPS clinicians on our medical team, and essentially we work through collaborative care. So that means that we partner with the therapist. They send us their patients. We help them identify patients who are eligible, and then we see them for a full hour intake. We prescribe for 2 courses of treatments. That means 1 hour of therapy, 2 hours of dosing, 1 hour of integration, and then they have to come back to us for a 30-minute follow-up consultation before we re-prescribe. We don't do monthly memberships. There is a reason for that. We really want to be able to do collaborative care. We also can take on all of their psychiatric medication management to have a full perspective on how their mental health works, and we collaborate with the therapist to keep them in the loop. So it's really collaborative care, essentially giving every therapist in America access to a world-class hospital system as their in-house doctor, which is a really big deal, and which was the main bottleneck. There's only 25,000 psychiatrists in America, 35,000 nurse practitioners, 1.3 million therapists, 50 million patients in therapy. So there's a huge need.
Yeah.
The other part of that is that clear?
Very clear.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
It really makes sense.
Great. Thank you. The other part of that is education. So what we need to do is we realized instantly that we needed to give them proper education and support to be able to deliver this care properly. We only work with licensed mental health professionals, and they're mostly equipped to do this work, actually, quite interestingly enough, even if they don't believe it themselves at times. But we also want to make sure they're trained. And so alongside our partner Fluence, we have a training that is included in our monthly membership where they have a 22-module training on ketamine-assisted therapy. They get C credits for that. And then we have also experiential training. So eligible therapists can, they have to be eligible for the treatment, but they can experience the treatment or shadow other therapists doing the session. There's mentorship, there's peer consultation groups. We have peer consultation groups about various modalities. We support group CAP, couples CAP, retreats in person, remote, and then it sort of like expands. And so there's a whole education continuum that we've developed at Journey, where we really help the therapist along the way, even just how to market their practice, price it, present it to their patients, and all of that is embedded on an online platform. And so what's really cool is that therapists who are more experienced essentially then become teachers in the Journey Clinical community. And so some of them start teaching, peer consultation groups or give presentations or classes. And it's really awesome. Like we have some of the best experts in the world. We have Lauren Tost as an advisor. We have Rebecca Kronman, who's been with us for a while, who does peer consultation groups, and Igmar sometimes does them too. It's really great. So we have SMEs, but also emerging people who became experts in their own field through Journey Clinical and grew their practice pretty tremendously through that. And a great story of that, we had one member who came to us, and his wife came to us and said, thanks to Journey Clinical, we were able to buy a house, put our kids through school, and also, treat so many people. So it's good to be able to have a model that's scalable, but also allows small businesses to, value themselves and grow. And so that leads to a whole community dynamic that we have. We have an online portal that is basically like Facebook, where they connect and they're online. There is a lot of learning, a lot of exchanges. One of my favorite channels in there is one called Client Wins, where someone said, a new lease on life. My patient was feeling depressed and suicidal, and after this he saw himself as a caterpillar being reborn, and his life has gotten better. And we've got hundreds of these posts.
Stories.
It's really wonderful, and they share learnings, and it's really cool. And then there's also we have a community team, and there's an in-person community. So we did a community event last night, but we also have local community events, local ambassadors who really are evangelists because this has helped them grow their practice. We actually had a panel yesterday with Lauren Tost and some of our members who talked about their experience with Journey and how it helped them grow their practice. And it was it's very exciting for me to see that, it was just us in our apartment a couple of years ago. And I think what they really like is that, first of all, the quality of care we deliver is very high. We turn down about 15% of our patients. We ask for clearances if there are any counterindications. We're very careful with a lot of what we do. And so the quality of care, they feel comfortable partnering with us. And then, recently, over the last year, we started to accept insurance. So we're in network with most major payers in 12 states to cover, most of the treatments and also med management. And we also launched a partnership with Compass Pathways. So I think we're one of the only telehealth companies that has a partnership with them for go-to-market on psilocybin. And part of that work is figuring out how to deliver not through a hospital system, but through individual practices this treatment. And I'm really excited to share that we actually were able to deliver our first off Journey Clinical site in therapist office Spravato session according to the REMS. And I don't know if you know what that means, but essentially there are medical requirements of having a doctor on site, storage requirements, there needs to be REMS approved, it needs prior authorization from insurance, and there's a likelihood that MDMA, psilocybin, all these other compounds are going to have similar requirements. And so one of the hurdles for decentralized behavioral health systems like ours was how are you guys ever going to do that without building a clinic? And what we did is we did it in a therapist's office that's not owned by Journey Clinical, and we did it, which means that we got it covered by insurance. So that's a huge step forward in having every therapist in the world being able to deliver, starting with ketamine, but then Spravato, MDMA, psilocybin, and all these treatments, and really building a practice that helps their patients and thrives at the same time. So we've got about 3,000, a little close to 3,000 therapists in our network today.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that's been kind of
Wow.
our story.
Thank you so much for running through all parts of it. I think it's very important to hear from you. Yes, and also it's very clear. It's almost like you have covered all the ground, and there's a home for everyone.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of speaks to the complexity of the Western life and the people and the mind that we have.
Of course. Also, we have to also acknowledge that when there is sort of innovation and adoption, these things take time. And I think these therapists are awesome, and they're the ones who are Journey Clinical. It's not us. We had an idea and we try to build the infrastructure for them. And all these people who, really benefit from these treatments, and then millions more. I think there is an inevitability that psychedelics are going to be mainstream. It's a question of time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, but 90% of all applications for the FDA for psychiatric drugs are actually psychedelics today. So it's a huge pipeline of drugs. I think we're going to be hearing some results from some of our partners really soon. So I know there was some setbacks last year with Lycos, but I think we're coming into an age where even the head of the FDA came out and said that psychedelics are a priority to get approved, which is, I think, super positive.
Huge.
Yeah.
And also, I think the setbacks are important for our maturity and growth, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, look, adoption is never a straight curve, and there is no technology, innovation, new treatment that hasn't gone through a curve of early, it's like evangelist, early adopters. There's a crossing of a chasm of people who are, doing their best, but also interested and afraid to sort of like add something new. And then all of a sudden, we drive adoption. But realistically, if you consider what are the biggest crises in terms of health in the world, it's the brain, right? And so it's mental health, it's neurology. And so, I think the advent of that is coming. And, we've got AI, which is awesome, right? Which can also support all of that and leverage all of that. Yeah. We're deeply interested in that as well.
Well, that's definitely another podcast interview, I believe. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This covers a lot to think about and sit with. I'm sure our listeners will appreciate this, because this is the kind of information that we need right now to really understand, because there's so much is out there written, and it's hard sometimes it's easy to get lost and hard to know where to look, right?
Yeah, well, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and they can find information on our website, journeyclinical.com. I'm sure you can.
I would add, yes, we'll be adding all of your links, information, anything that is valuable for us to look into, and that will be in the show notes for sure.
Great. And I had so much fun. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, and all the best, and hope to be following your journey, having you back for another interview soon.
Would love that. Yeah, sure. It would be my pleasure.
Thank you. And before we leave you, I think my personal question, that I would say, what are your thoughts on this year's Psychedelic Science Conference as opposed to the 2 years ago? There's a lot more people attending.
Yeah.
What are your observations? I'm really curious.
Well, I'm biased. I have a lot of friends here. And, there's not so many, it's dog years. We've been in this space for 4 or 5 years, and we're one of the leaders. So I'm really happy to see a lot of my friends.
Standing strong?
Well, it's been tough, I think, for some of the companies in this space, and some have thrived. And we're, very lucky to have been one of those. I think that I'm really happy to still see so much enthusiasm about this work, and so many people who dedicate their lives and believe that it's going to happen. And that is the challenge of innovators, and also the true belief that we're bringing something positive to the world in a way that is going to be constructive and safe and healthy. And so a lot of the conversations, I'm excited. I have a talk with Steve Levine, who's the chief patient officer at Compass, tomorrow about FDA approval and delivery of this care. And there's a great programming, and Kevin Baltic is a great friend, and he always does. I know what a tremendous lift this is, and I'm a huge fan of, all these people, and Rick, of course. And so, look, it's great to be here. We're happy to support it, and I'm so grateful that people are equally enthusiastic about this space and believe in it, and I have a lot of conviction that this will keep growing.
Fully on board with that. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Really appreciate this. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Time. Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Thank you everyone for listening and joining. And please do comment, share your questions, drop it in the comments. As you know, don't be shy and get in touch with Jonathan for anything that you inquire about, inquire about. We'll have the links. So we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you so much.